This is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as an educational material.
So hi guys, I'm Cadet Archaga and we're gonna talk about the 6 claims of globalization by Manfred B. Steger. So what these 6 claims by Manfred Steger talks about? So Manfred Steger's 6 claims of globalization explains as the creation, expansion, and acceleration of interconnectedness socially, economic, political, and cultural relation across the world. So both as materials processes and as shared by the global consciousness to create a convincing narrative linking globalization with freedom, democracy, prosperity, and lastly, security. And how these 6 claims by Manfred B. Steger affects our globalization. So these 6 claims affects our globalization by shaping that is multidimensional force that gives opportunities like trade, cultural exchange, while also creating challenges such as inequality, conflict, and environmental issues. So first, let's tackle the first claim of globalization, the market integration, to be discussed by Cadet Rafael Gabiola.
Good day everyone, I'm Cadet Gabiola and today I'll be discussing the first claim of globalization according to Manfred Steger. This first claim explains that globalization is mainly about liberalization and integration of markets. In simple terms, it means that countries lower their trade barriers, open their economies, and connect together into one big global marketplace. Here, the spread of free market capitalism is often seen as natural and even beneficial for development. We can clearly see this claim through real examples. One is the World Trade Organization or WTO, which helps nations trade more openly. Another is the ASEAN Free Trade Area or AFTA, where Southeast Asian countries agreed to reduce tariffs and encourage easier trade. And of course, multinational corporations like Apple, Toyota, and or Coca-Cola also play a big role because they operate across borders and link different economies together. Now, this claim brings both pros and cons. On the positive side, first, the prices of goods are often lower. Second, consumers enjoy more choices. Third, technology and innovation spread faster. And lastly, globalization opens more opportunities for investments and job creation. Despite the positive side of this, there's also need to look at the downsides, which is the small local businesses struggle to compete with big corporations. Another is workers may face lower wages and weaker protections. And lastly, economies can become more vulnerable to global financial crises. So, to wrap it up, the first claim of globalization shows us how market and economies are connected. It highlights how opening trade and embracing capitalism bring growth and opportunities, but also challenges not everyone benefits from equally. Thank you.
Good day everyone. Today I'll explain Manfred Steger's second claim that globalization is inevitable and irreversible. This means globalization cannot be stopped or undone. For centuries, it has grown through trade, travel, and technology, making the world more connected than ever. Inevitable means it will happen no matter what because technology, commerce, and global links keep advancing. Irreversible means that once globalization has started, we cannot return to complete isolation, even if some countries resist. Wars and pandemics may slow it down, but globalization continues to move forward as a natural part of human progress. Now, what are the pros of globalization being inevitable and irreversible? First, economic growth. Trade expands market, creates jobs, and drives innovation. For example, Southeast Asia's nations grow rapidly by joining global trade. But there are also cons. Globalization often increase inequality where big corporation benefits more than small farmer. It creates environmental costs with shipping and factories contributing to climate change. There's loss of sovereignty since nations may feel pressure to follow global rules. In short, globalization is portrayed as unstoppable and permanent. It brings opportunities to growth and connection, but also serious challenges that must be addressed. Thank you, that's all.
Core claim number 3. Nobody is in charge of globalization. Steger explains that market globalists portray globalization as leaderless, decentralized process. No single country, company, or organization controls it. Instead, globalization is seen as the spontaneous outcome of millions of individual market decisions, traders, consumers, investors, firms, guided by the supply and demand. So when Steger says that market globalists portray globalization as leaderless, decentralized process, he means that no one actor like the US, China, the UN, or big corporation is officially running globalization. Instead, globalization is described as the natural outcome of everyday choices made by countless people and businesses around the world. It's like a giant web. Goods, money, and data flow around the globe without a central switchboard operator. Example, global supply chains. Your smartphone may be designed in the US, assembled in Vietnam, with parts from South Korea and rare earths from Africa. No one government designed this chain. It emerged through cost and effective calculations by thousands of firms. So also it has pros. So number 1 is promotes trust in the invisible hand. So this means that it suggests that globalization isn't imposed by a single agenda, but emerges naturally from free choices. Example is a million of consumers choosing affordable goods from abroad helps create trade links. Number 2 is it encourages global participation since if no one controls it, then theoretically any country, business, or individual can take part and benefit. So example is small online sellers in the Philippines can sell worldwide via Shopee, Lazada, etc. So number 3 is it encourages innovation. Since no central authority sets strict limits, there is more room for experimentation and entrepreneurship across borders. So it also has cons. So number 1 is it marks hidden hierarchies of power. Reality, institutions like the IMF, WTO, and World Bank set rules that shape free markets. Tech giants dominate global digital flows. Examples are Google, Meta, Amazon, and Apple collectively influence online globalization far more than small states. Number 2 is it weakens accountability. If no one is in charge, then no one is clearly responsible for problems like the 2008 financial crisis, global tax avoidance, or witch shop labor. Number 3, it fuels inequalities. If markets are left ungoverned, benefits often flow to the already powerful, like wealthy nations, while weaker economies struggle to compete.
Good day everyone. Today I'll be discussing about Manfred Steger's claim for market globalism, which argue that globalization benefits everyone in the long run. This claim says that globalization promotes economic growth, create jobs, lower the cost of goods, and spread of technology worldwide. Through markets, countries can specialize in what they do best in making products more affordable and accessible at the same time. The exchange of knowledge and innovation helps developing nations to improve in areas like education, healthcare, and infrastructure, while wealthier nations may benefit first. Examples like South Korea, Singapore, and China show how developing countries can also rise and reduce poverty through global integration. Now, let's look at the pros and cons. The pros of market globalization include economic growth and job creation, cheaper goods, for consumers and the spread of technology and knowledge across borders. On the other hand, the cons include widening inequality, where rich countries often benefit more, the loss of local culture and identity due to global brands and exploration of labor and the environment in developing nations. So in short, Claim 4 presents globalization as a path toward shared living standards, but it also comes with challenges that must be addressed. Thank you. And that's all.
So now let's go to the fifth claim, which is the globalization further spread democracy in the world. Now the idea is that as countries become more interconnected through trade, communication, travel, and global institutions, democratic value and systems like free elections, rule of law, human rights, and freedom of speech are more likely to spread across borders. So the claim suggests that globalization doesn't just move goods and money, it also moves political ideas and pressures governments to adopt the democratic practice. Another example is that Eastern Europe or post-Cold War. After the fall of the Soviet Union, globalization through exposure to Western markets, institutions like EU and media, encouraged many Eastern European states, e.g. or it may be Poland, Czech Republic, to democratize. Second example is the South Korea and Taiwan. Both transitions from authoritarian regimes to democracies in late 20th century, partly due to global economic integration and the influence of Western allies. And last example is that Arab Spring or year 2011, social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter is a product of globalization. They help spread democratic ideas and coordinate protests in Tunisia, Egypt, and more countries. Now let's go to the pros or the strength of the claim. First is that exposure to democratic ideals. Mainly global media, internet, and NGOs spread value of human rights, accountability, and free elections. This gives us the more overview or gives us the idea of how we expose the democratic ideals. Second is the economic independence. Pressures government, countries trading with democracies often face incentives to adopt more transparent, predictable, and democratic practices. Lastly is the support from international institutions. Organizations like the UN, EU, and World Bank often tie aid to membership to democratic forms. So let's go to the cons or the critics of the claim. So first is that it is not universal. Some authoritarian states like China, Russia, Saudi Arabia have integrated deeply into the global economy while resisting democratization. Second is the backlash effect. It is the exposure to globalization that can strengthen authoritarian nationalism like leaders farming democracy as Western imperialism. Lastly, the third, selective democracy. Some countries adopt surface-level democratic institutions for international approval, but maintain authoritarian practices. It is the so-called illiberal democracies.
So let's proceed to the last claim, which is the war on terror. So this requires a new understanding of globalization. It is a critical perspective that moves beyond an optimistic view of global integration. And also this posits the very interconnectedness celebrated for economic and cultural exchange. Well, is also a vulnerability that facilitates global security threats. And also, this idea is rooted in the recognition that the tool of globalization, specifically the open borders, global financial systems, and the internet, are neutral in their nature. So they can be used for trade and also tourism, but also for illicit activities and the spread of extremism. So more recently, the rise of groups like the ISIS has further illustrated this very point. ISIS leveraged modern globalization tools, particularly the social media platforms, for to bypass the traditional media and state-controlled borders. And also, they have created a sophisticated, globally accessible propaganda machines that recruited fighters and also sympathizers from all around the world. So this demonstrated how a non-state actor could use the internet to build a global movement and project power without a traditional military. And also, this new understanding forces a shift
Enemies of
in how we
freedom
approach
committed an
global
act of war
security,
against our
moving
country.
from a focused and state-on-state
Americans have
concept
known wars,
to one that recognizes the
but for the
fluid
past
traditional
136
nature
years,
of modern threats. However, critics argue that this perspective can also be dangerous.
So in continuation of Decade 2, I will discussing the pros and market of globalization. Security of global trade, fighting terrorism helps to protect the trade routes and global economies. Example, protecting oil and shipping lanes in the Middle East. Next is spread of democracy. Military action claims that to promote freedom and stable governance. Example, attempts to establishment democracy in Iraq. Next is the global stability. A united efforts against terrorism may strengthen international partnership. Example, NATO coalition against terrorism. So the next is the cons of market of globalization. Construct free market ideas relying on where state power goes to against the idea of a self-regulating market. Nationalism over globalism. The US-led war on terror made the globalization appear like Americans and dominance. And also the human economics cost. War in Iraq, Afghanistan caused the huge loss of life, destruction, and global distrust. And that's all for.
His claims form a significant part of the ideology, known as market globalization. They are often used to legitimize and promote policies that favor free markets, reduce trade barriers, and open capital flows, while proponents highlight benefits like economic growth and cultural exchange. Critics argue these claims overlook negative consequences, such as increased global inequality, exploitation of labor, and erosion of local culture. The discussion of these claims helps in critically evaluating the processes and impacts of globalization, moving beyond simple advocacy to consider its multifaceted nature.